Hello, everyone. We are going to spend some time this particular class period doing review. And what I'm going to do is make some small videos that help to review some of the worksheets that you should have used to help practice with the content that we've been going through. The first thing I'm going to do, though, is to show you how to have two screens up on your computer at once. So the first thing we need to do is open a blank window. And why is that doing this? Okay. So you start with your first new tab. Okay. So you open up a new tab in Google and you go right up here to the very top right. So if you were to click on this X, you would close out of it. So what you want to do is just go right to the left of that and click on these two little double boxes. What that does is it makes this window really small. Okay, and if you wish to change the size a little bit, you go right to the edge. You can see the double arrow that has come up, and you can move it larger or smaller. If you go to the bottom, you could make it smaller or larger so it fits the page. So now you have that on one half of your screen. You can see the other half of my screen is blank. All you see is the desktop. So then I'm going to go to this new tab button and click on that so that I have two blank tabs open, and I'm going to grab one of these tabs and just pull it out, and you can see now I have two tabs open on one screen. Okay, so from here on one of the sides you are going to find your Google Classroom. Boop. And you are going to find your classroom for science and go to the classwork tab, and we're going to start all the way back onto day one where I had given you a practice assessment, or excuse me, a practice assignment for properties, physical and chemical properties. And if we open this up, open up your copy of it, you should now have your copy that you can see so that you can look at your copy while we are correcting with my copy. Okay, so now you should have your copy open up on one tab and my video still showing up on another tab. Okay, so I'm going to close out of one of these because I only need to show you one screen as we go through to correct each worksheet. So now you've been given a little how-to on how to shrink your screen so that you can have more than one open at the same time. So from here we're going to go through and talk about physical chemical properties and changes. I'm going to try to make each of these videos as short and sweet as possible. I know they're going to get a little lengthy. So remember that a physical property is a property that describes a substance without changing what it is made of. Okay, so I'm going to go through and label all of these ones with a P. Blue color is physical. Density is physical. Solubility, whether or not a substance will dissolve in a liquid, is physical. To have a sour taste could be physical. It might be chemical too, due to a reaction, but I'm going to treat it as if you tasted something and it was sour, would be a physical property for the substance. Okay, I'm going to delete that back. Melting point, because that's the temperature at which a substance goes from a solid to a liquid, is a physical change. It's still the same substance. Think about an ice cube in your drink. It's water when it goes in, and when it's all melted, it's still water. See, hardness is physical. Boiling point, same thing. We're just looking at a phase change between a liquid to a gas. It's still the same substance. Luster, whether or not something is shiny, is physical. Odor is one of those ones that could be physical or chemical, because it could be an odor produced from a reaction, that would be chemical, or if it's just that the substance has a particular odor, then it would be physical. Okay. Now everything else that is unlabeled would represent a chemical property. And so this would be a property that describes how something will change its natural composition. Okay. Moving on, we're looking at physical or chemical changes. When something goes through a physical change, it is still the same substance at the end of it. When it goes through a chemical change, it has become something brand new. So if I were to dissolve salt in water, this is a physical change. And I know this because I could evaporate the water away and still have my salt in its normal natural form. If I cut an apple, that is a physical change. If I change water into steam, it's still water. If something evaporates, again, it's just changing its phase. And ice melting, it's still water in this particular case, so that would be a physical change. I'm just going to boot these back a second so they're organized and lined up. Let's see, sugar dissolving, anything that dissolves should be able to be brought back in its natural form, so that would be a physical. Okay, inflating a tire is physical, and paper towels absorbing water is physical, and that's if the water evaporated away from the paper towel, then it would still be paper towel. Okay, everything else listed in here would be considered a chemical change. You can no longer get the substance back in the original form. Okay, now moving on down through, and boy, am I sorry I gave you such a big worksheet to work on. Again, we're looking at the statements being made here and whether or not they represent a physical or chemical change taking place. So in this first one, we have an ice cube that's going, melting into a puddle and then eventually evaporating. So that's physical. Okay. If you're mixing two chemicals together and a gas is produced, that's chemical. If something rusts, it's oxidizing. The oxygen is having a reaction with the metal. Therefore, it is chemical. It is changing it. You can't get the original substance back. If you've ever seen metal go through a harsh rusting process, it gets whittled down and becomes weaker and breaks apart. You can't get that original substance back. If you just change the size or shape of a substance, like crushing something, it is a physical change. Whenever light is produced from mixing substances, like glow sticks, right? That would be chemical. Again, you have ice melting, that would be physical, but then you have it also reacting with sodium, that would be chemical. So that's a two-part answer. If you mix salt and pepper, that's physical. You could separate them by attempting to dissolve them in water. The salt will dissolve and the pepper will remain on the top, and so you could skim it off. So that's a physical change. And chocolate syrup dissolved into milk. It's dissolving. Ideally, you could go through the process of separating them, though I don't think I would want to try. Again, this last piece here is looking at the truth or falseness of the statements. So you have to think, are they saying the correct things? So changing the size and shape of a piece of wood would be a chemical change. That's false. Just changing the size or the shape would be physical. Okay. In a physical change, the makeup of the matter is changed. That is also false. Okay. If you change the makeup of the matter, okay, now we're just thinking about evaporation. Is that when a liquid changes into a gas? And yes, that can happen for water. It can happen for other liquids as well. So the statement would be true. Here, evaporation is a physical change. That is also true because the substance itself still has the same chemical makeup. Now, burning wood, think about it. Anytime you've ever seen anything burned, could you get the original substance back? No, so that would be a chemical change. So this is false. When combining hydrogen and oxygen to make water, you're taking two completely different elements and then reacting them to make a new compound. This is not physical, this is chemical. It's a chemical change. If you break up concrete, this is true, it is a physical change. Oops, that would be false, sorry. Breaking up concrete is a physical change, that is true. Sand being washed out to sea from the beach is a chemical change. That's false. It's still sand. It's just being whisked away. When ice cream melts, a chemical change occurs. This is also false. It's still ice cream. It's just in its liquid form. You might prefer it frozen, but if it melts, it doesn't change the fact that it was still ice cream. It is still ice cream. And then lastly, acid rain damaging a marble statue is a physical change. That is also false. Wow, I should have put more truths in here. Acid rain will break down statues and metal and wear them away. Erosion can be from acid rain breaking down the actual chemicals. So that is a chemical change here. And so there you have it. We have finished our first review of the very first worksheet. You should have had yours open and be correcting it on one side, and my video open with the answers on the other. And there's a few more videos to come. Hopefully they'll be a lot quicker. Excellent.